that people often make is to place their subject directly in the dead center of the camera, usually because that's where they know their camera's going to focus. But you'll find that that can kind of make for a little bit of a static composition. So the thing to imagine in this case is imagine that your photograph is divided by a tic-tac-toe board. So you have two vertical lines and two horizontal lines. Consider placing your subject where two of those lines intersect. So they'll end up being a third of the way down from the top or a third of the way over from the side instead of right smack in the middle. It's a little more dynamic and a little more pleasing to the eye. A lot of amateur photographers will take a picture, say, of a person, but it doesn't have to be a person, even of a monument or something like that, with lots and lots of extraneous space in the background, to the sides and above and below. And that ends up being more of a distraction than anything else. And if you will get yourself closer, either by using a zoom lens, which you may have on your camera, or by simply walking closer to your subject, you'll find that a lot of that distraction and that extraneous background goes away, and you can also get a nice, more detailed look at the thing that you actually want to photograph, and also end up with a photograph that has a little more impact than one where your subject is sort of caught up in the midst of all this background business. A lot of times a photographer is only paying attention to their main subject, and they just don't happen to notice that directly behind somebody's head there's a, telephone pole or what have you that seems to be sticking straight out of someone's head. Of course, it's very simple to correct this. All you have to do is either move yourself so that that thing in the background shifts a little bit off to the side or out of the frame completely, or conversely, you can move your subject so that that offending item not sticking straight up out of their head. So simple fix, but a very, very common mistake. A lot of people, when they're taking pictures, you stand up with your camera, you walk around, you bring your camera up to your face, and you shoot a picture. Well, what that ends up with is that all your pictures are taken from exactly the same angle. I'd like to suggest that photographers consider crouching down and looking up at something, or conversely, looking down at something, or looking at a sort of a sidelong angle at something. And a lot of people just don't think to do it. But if you think to do it, you might end up with some much more distinctive photographs than if you just stand and shoot. Basically what this is about is using the space around your subject. In a photograph, the positive space is your subject, and the negative space is everything that's around your subject. So it's useful to think of how these two spaces interact with one another. And there are several different ways that they can. For example, a very strong shape is the triangle. So you might try to create a triangular shape in your negative space that maybe points to your subject. And that can be a very dynamic composition. Or you might have a line that leads from the front of your photograph to the center, leading right to your subject. So the idea is to take note of what's around and see what ways you can bring those things in to interact with your subject, rather than just having your subject standing alone with some blank space around. What really is exciting for you about photography? I would say to be sure to identify that, and then to bring that into your work. If you're shooting things just because you think that's where the money is, now sometimes you're going to have to do that, but eventually you're going to tire of that and you're not going to be doing your best work. But if there's something that really fires you up, that you can perfect and specialize in and bring and then offer to the market, then I think that's the best way to have something that's at least a little unique, that's really coming from what you love. And people are going to take interest in that if it's something that you really feel strongly about.